Welcome to our deep dive today.
Oh, great to be here.
We're going to be exploring 10 Buddhist habits for a more peaceful life.
Get ready because we're about to unpack some seriously practical advice.
It's interesting because these habits really apply to everyone. You don't have to be a Buddhist or a monk or anything.
Yeah.
It's about shifting your mindset, to find more peace and clarity in everyday life.
Yeah, absolutely.
And it all starts with that first habit,
Okay.
focusing on what's actually in your control.
Okay, so let's dive right into that. Focusing on what you can control. This idea of detachment from things beyond our control really resonated with me.
Yeah.
It's so easy to get caught up in worrying about things we just can't change.
Oh, absolutely. Think about it.
Yeah.
You can't control the weather, right?
Right.
Or the stock market, or,
Politics.
yeah, exactly. Politics, or even, whether your favorite sports team wins or loses.
Oh, tell me about it.
But you know what you can control?
What's that?
Your reactions, your thoughts, your actions, and how you respond to all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
The source actually is a really good example, like how to handle insults, Instead of getting all defensive, which is, I think, like a natural reaction for a lot of people.
Yeah, for sure.
Try just responding calmly. It might seem small, but it can make a world of difference in your inner peace.
It's like that saying, you can't stop the waves, but you can learn to surf. You build that resilience and learn to kind of ride those waves instead of getting tossed around by them, which actually brings us to the next habit, not caring what others think. Is it really possible to just not care what other people think?
Well, it's not about becoming totally indifferent or, not caring about anyone.
Right.
It's more about recognizing that constantly seeking validation from outside sources, from other people,
Yeah.
it can lead to a lot of suffering.
Oh, yeah.
You end up with this fragile sense of self that's totally dependent on what other people think of you.
It's like building your house on somebody else's land.
Yeah.
No stability whatsoever.
Exactly. Plus, you're never going to make everyone happy.
Right.
The source even points this out. What one person admires, someone else is going to criticize. So if your self-worth hinges on that external approval,
Yeah.
you're going to be on this emotional roller coaster all the time.
Totally. So how do we break free from that need for constant approval?
Well, the source emphasizes self-acceptance
Okay.
and living authentically. So it's about aligning your actions with your own values, not what you think others expect of you.
I'm starting to see how these habits all kind of build on each other.
Yeah.
Like if you're focusing on what you can control and not seeking that external validation, it naturally leads to more mental strength, which is conveniently our next habit.
It's interesting because, a lot of people think mental strength is about suppressing your emotions or becoming like this, unfeeling robot.
Yeah.
But it's really not about that.
No, it's about resilience.
Right. Exactly. It's about resilience. It's about being able to face challenges with a sense of composure,
Yeah. Yeah, the source actually talks about mindfulness being a key part of that. Like that space between a stimulus and your reaction to it. It's like hitting the pause button before you respond.
Oh, I love that. It's such a good analogy. That pause, even if it's just like a split second, can be so powerful.
Yeah.
It gives you a chance to, really choose a more skillful response, one that aligns with your values instead of just reacting out of, anger or fear or whatever.
Yeah, it's like, not letting your emotions totally hijack you in the moment.
Yeah, exactly.
The source uses this awesome analogy of the mind being like a wild elephant. You have to tame it through practice, and that practice, as we've been talking about, is mindfulness.
It allows you to observe your inner world,
Yeah.
without getting swept away by every single thought and emotion. It's like building that awareness muscle,
Yeah, so that when life throws those curveballs, you're better equipped to handle them.
Exactly.
And speaking of curveballs, let's talk about habit number 4, embracing obstacles as opportunities. Now, this one really challenges our usual way of thinking, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I think it's natural to see obstacles as setbacks, things to avoid,
Yeah.
But the source is saying, no, they're actually opportunities for growth, for learning. It even calls them teachers, which I think is so cool.
Yeah, I love that. It's a total perspective shift.
Right.
Like instead of fearing those obstacles, we can actually welcome them as, chances to learn and grow.
Because, the Buddha taught that suffering is a universal part of the human experience.
Right.
It's not actually the obstacles themselves that cause the most suffering. It's our resistance to them.
So instead of fighting against the current, we can try to approach those obstacles with mindfulness, with openness.
Yeah.
Is there like a real life example of how this works?
Sure. Imagine you're in a really tough situation at work.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Maybe a project's like completely off the rails, or you're like having a conflict with a coworker. Instead of getting overwhelmed, like freaking out,
Mm-hmm.
ask yourself, what can I learn from this?
Ooh, that's good.
Right. So instead of seeing it as just like a setback, it becomes this opportunity to strengthen your patience, your communication skills,
Mm-hmm.
or even your ability to handle criticism.
And that brings us to another really important Buddhist habit, self-discipline. And I think it's important to clarify, this
Yeah.
isn't about deprivation or being super rigid
Well,
or...
not at all. It's about making choices that align with your values, you
Yeah,
know?
yeah. So it's about that inner strength to stay focused on your goals
hmm
and resist those, temptations that might lead you astray.
Exactly.
The source also talks about the 5 precepts, which are ethical guidelines to kind of live by.
Oh, yeah. Those are really important.
So things like refraining from harming others, stealing, sexual misconduct, lying, and using intoxicants that cloud the mind.
Right. So it's not about blindly following rules out of fear.
Yeah.
It's about consciously choosing actions that create more peace and well-being, for yourself and everyone around you.
And it's important to remember that self-discipline is a practice, not about being perfect. We're all going to mess up sometimes.
Of course. Yeah.
And that's okay.
It's about progress, not perfection.
Exactly. And speaking of, letting go of perfection, that reminds me of the next habit, living simply. Now, I know when people hear living simply, they think, oh, minimalism or deprivation.
Right, right.
It's not about that, though, is it?
It's more about recognizing that true happiness doesn't come from all the stuff. It's about letting go of the unnecessary, both physically and mentally, to make space for what really matters.
Because our modern world really encourages us to constantly acquire more, right?
Oh, yeah, it's like possessions, achievements, recognition.
Yes.
But, all that can actually distract us from what's truly fulfilling.
It's like, imagine your house is super cluttered,
Good,
right? You probably feel stressed and overwhelmed. But when it's clean and organized,
Oh, for sure.
you feel calmer, more focused.
It's true, yeah.
That's the power of simplicity. And it's not just about your physical space. It's about decluttering your mind, too. Letting go of all those worries, anxieties, what-ifs that just clutter up our thinking.
Yeah, Buddhism offers really great tools for that mental decluttering, mainly through mindfulness and meditation. Mindfulness helps you become aware of those thoughts without getting carried away. And meditation allows you to create that space so you can observe those thoughts without judgment and then, let them go.
Yeah, it's so powerful.
Yeah.
And that naturally leads to our next habit, giving without expectation. This is really at the heart of Buddhist philosophy, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. It's about cultivating this mindset of generosity.
Yeah.
And it goes way beyond material things.
Yeah.
It's about giving your time, your attention, your emotional energy freely without any strings attached.
The source makes a really interesting point that when we give with an expectation of something in return, that can actually lead to more suffering.
Yeah, if you're attached to a specific outcome, you're going to be disappointed if it doesn't happen. But when you give freely, with no strings attached, active giving, that becomes the reward in itself.
It's a beautiful way to kind of reframe how we see the world, right?
Yeah.
Instead of seeing everything as limited, we can start to see the abundance that's already there.
It's about shifting from a scarcity mindset to an abundance mindset. And that generosity can be expressed in so many ways,
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be about money or possessions.
Right.
It could be offering a kind word, truly listening to a friend, just being present with someone who needs you.
These are the things that really matter.
Yeah.
And on that note, let's move on to releasing negative thoughts. I think this is something we can all relate to.
Oh, absolutely.
At some level.
Yeah, I mean, those self-doubts and anxieties, those fears, they can really weigh us down.
Yeah.
But remember, Buddhism teaches that your mind is both the source of your suffering and the source of your liberation.
It's like having a radio playing in the background that you've just tuned out, right?
Uh-huh.
Those negative messages are still there, but you're not really paying attention to them.
Yeah. And mindfulness is the key to tuning back in and recognizing those thought patterns.
Yeah, so we're not just letting those thoughts control us without even realizing it.
Exactly. Yeah. It's about understanding that those thoughts, they're not who you are. They're just passing mental events. Think of it like this. Your thoughts are like clouds drifting across the sky.
Oh, I like that.
You don't need to cling to them, analyze them, judge them. You could just observe them come and go.
So we can learn to simply watch those thoughts without getting swept away by them.
Exactly. And the source also points out that a lot of times those negative thoughts, they're influenced by, your emotions, your past experiences, or even your current circumstances.
That makes sense.
So just because a negative thought pops up, it doesn't mean it's true.
So how do we actually break free from those negative thought patterns?
Well, the source suggests meditation as one of the most powerful tools for, quieting the mind, creating space between those thoughts. And with practice, you can really learn to observe those thoughts without judgment.
It's about recognizing that they don't have power over you unless you give it to them. And speaking of meditation, that brings us to habit number 9, developing a daily meditation practice. This is where the rubber meets the road, wouldn't you say?
Oh, for sure. Meditation's like a cornerstone of Buddhist practice. It's so much more than just relaxation.
Right.
Although that's a nice benefit too.
Yeah.
It's about training your mind, like you would train your body at the gym to develop mental discipline and clarity. The source even talks about different types of meditation. There's mindfulness meditation, there's loving kindness meditation.
Yeah, let's break those down a bit. So mindfulness meditation, that's like the most basic type, right?
Yeah, it's about cultivating awareness of the present moment without judgment. So it's just about observing your thoughts, your feelings, your body sensations as they arise.
Recognizing that they're all temporary experiences.
Yeah. And it can be tough at first, Our minds are so used to being busy. Yeah. Full of distractions. But with practice, you can learn to observe those thoughts without getting carried away by them.
It's like building a muscle.
Totally. Yeah. The more you practice it, the stronger it gets.
And the stronger that muscle gets, the less reactive you become to stress.
Exactly.
So you're better able to handle, difficult situations.
Yeah.
The source also highlights loving kindness meditation, which is also known as metta meditation. And this type of meditation focuses on cultivating compassion and love.
Yeah.
Starting with yourself and then radiating outward.
So you're silently repeating phrases like, may I be happy, may I be healthy, may I live with ease.
That's beautiful.
Right. And then you gradually extend those well wishes to others.
And that's such a beautiful practice for opening your heart and recognizing that interconnectedness of all beings. The source also mentions insight meditation or vipassana. And this is about gaining a deeper understanding of the true nature of reality. Right?
Yeah, it involves observing the impermanence, the interconnectedness, the constantly changing nature of all phenomena.
Including our own thoughts, emotions, sensations.
Everything. Yeah.
The source explains that in Vipassana, you're basically learning to just observe those sensations without reacting to them. It's about seeing things as they are without the filters of our usual perceptions.
It can be really liberating to, realize that everything is constantly changing.
Yeah.
Our thoughts, our bodies, our emotions.
It helps us to kind of let go of that illusion of permanence, right?
Exactly, yeah.
And recognize that fluidity of life. And speaking of navigating life's changes gracefully, that brings us to our final habit for today, cultivating patience. This seems especially relevant in our fast-paced world.
Oh, yeah. Patience is so underrated these days.
Yeah.
The source really emphasizes that it's about so much more than just waiting. It's an active way of living.
So it's about approaching challenges and delays with a sense of calm and acceptance.
Exactly.
It's not just passively waiting for things to happen.
Right.
It's a choice.
Yeah, it's a conscious choice.
And the source actually breaks down patience into 3 types.
Okay.
Patience with hardship, patience with others, and patience with the truth.
And each of those plays a really important role in how we navigate life,
So let's start with patience with hardship.
Okay.
This feels crucial for just handling those inevitable difficulties that we all face.
Think of it as the ability to endure suffering or challenging situations without letting them totally disrupt your inner peace,
Because we all face hardship. Right?
Oh, of course, yeah. illness, loss, disappointments. Patience with hardship helps you approach those situations with resilience.
It's about, like, learning to ride those waves of life's ups and downs without getting totally swept away.
Exactly. It's not about denying or suppressing difficult emotions.
Okay.
It's about learning to be present with them
Right.
without letting them control you.
So patience with hardship is about that inner strength, right?
Yeah.
That stability to face those challenges. What about patience with others?
Well, that's about accepting the limitations and imperfections of the people around you. It's about recognizing that everyone's on their own journey.
So instead of getting frustrated or judging others when they don't meet our expectations, we can practice patience and understanding.
Right. Like, have you ever been stuck behind someone at the grocery store who's moving super slow?
Oh, all the time.
Or, like, annoyed by a friend who's always late?
Yeah.
Patience with others allows you to respond with compassion instead of judgment,
Yeah.
recognizing that, we all make mistakes. We're all doing the best we can.
It's about remembering we're all human.
Exactly. Yeah.
And finally, there's patience with the truth. This feels very philosophical.
Well, Buddhism teaches that, everything is impermanent and interconnected.
Right. Constantly changing. Yeah. So patience with the truth, it's about accepting reality as it is without resistance or denial. Sometimes we want to cling to our own version of reality, even when it's not serving us anymore. Exactly. But patience with the truth helps us let go of those illusions and really embrace the present moment, even if it's not what we wanted or expected, It's about trusting that life is unfolding as it should, even when we don't understand it. Yeah. And letting go of that need to control everything. So cultivating patience with hardship, with others, and with the truth. It's such an essential part of living a more peaceful and fulfilling life. And as we wrap up this first part of our deep dive, I'm struck by how interconnected all of these habits are. They're not just isolated practices. They all work together to support each other, to create this foundation for personal growth and transformation.
It's really like a holistic approach. You know? It's not about just focusing on one aspect.
It's about cultivating all of these qualities to really create a more balanced and fulfilling life. It's interesting how these habits encourage us to work with life's challenges instead of constantly fighting against them. Like we were just talking about, patience.
Yeah.
It's an active practice, not just passively waiting for things to happen.
Right. It's about shifting our mindset. Our world is so focused on speed and efficiency that we've kind of forgotten the beauty of slowing down. We want everything instantly, and then when it doesn't happen, we get so frustrated.
Yeah.
But patience teaches us to appreciate that natural rhythm of life.
The source actually makes a really good point about how all this rushing around, it prevents us from actually experiencing the richness of the present moment, We're so busy trying to get to the next thing that we miss out on the simple joys that are already there.
It's like we're stuck on a treadmill, always running but never really getting anywhere. Patience invites us to, step off the treadmill.
And actually enjoy the journey.
And by slowing down, we can start to appreciate those simple things that we often overlook.
Yeah.
Think about the last time you really savored a meal. Or had a quiet moment just to reflect.
Right.
Or had a truly connected conversation with someone you care about.
These are the moments that make life rich and meaningful.
Yeah.
But they're so easy to miss when we're constantly rushing or, feeling impatient.
The source even suggests that cultivating patience can make us more generous, with our time, attention, and energy.
That makes sense because when we're not always in a hurry or feeling stressed, we have more space to just be present with others and offer support without expecting anything in return.
Exactly. Patience helps us cultivate that open-heartedness that allows, for true generosity to flow.
Yeah.
And it helps us be more understanding and compassionate in our relationships. When we practice patience with others, we're able to navigate those inevitable differences and conflicts with more grace.
It's about remembering that, like you said, everyone's on their own unique journey.
Yeah.
And we all make mistakes. Patience helps us choose kindness over judgment, even when it's hard.
It's important to extend that compassion and understanding to ourselves, too.
Yeah, absolutely. The source talks about the importance of patience with ourselves, especially when it comes to personal growth, because it's so easy to get caught in that trap of self-criticism,
Oh, for sure. Especially when we're comparing ourselves to other people.
Yeah, constantly. But patience reminds us that growth is a process, not a destination.
It's about celebrating those small wins along the way and
Yeah.
acknowledging that we're all constantly evolving.
So it's about honoring where we are right now
Yeah,
and trusting that we're unfolding in our own time.
exactly.
And speaking of trust, the Source talks about how patience helps us trust the timing of our lives.
It's true. Things don't always happen according to our timelines.
Oh, tell me about it.
Goals might take longer to achieve than we'd like.
Yeah.
Relationships might develop at their own pace.
Yeah.
Opportunities might seem to be delayed.
Ugh. It's so frustrating when things don't go according to plan.
But patience helps us surrender to that natural flow of life, trusting that what's meant for us will arrive in its own time.
It's about letting go of that need to control every outcome and just having faith that things will work out.
Exactly.
As we're talking about this, it makes me think about how patience and trusting the process are essential, not just for our personal well-being, but also for creating a more peaceful and just world.
Absolutely. When we cultivate patience within ourselves, it naturally extends outwards. We become more patient with others, more tolerant of differences, more committed to working towards solutions that benefit everyone, even if those solutions take time.
It's like a ripple effect, right?
Totally, yeah.
Starting with our own inner transformation and then expanding outward to touch all aspects of our lives.
And that brings us back to the heart of Buddhist practice, cultivating mindfulness.
Yeah, the Source keeps coming back to that. Mindfulness is the foundation for all these habits.
It's like the key that unlocks our potential for peace, wisdom, and compassion.
And it's something that we can cultivate through a daily meditation practice.
That's
and
right.
throughout our conversation, we've talked about the benefits of meditation.
Yeah.
Exploring different types of practice and how it can help us reduce stress, cultivate self-awareness, and develop a deeper understanding of reality.
It's not just a technique, it's like a way of life.
Yeah.
It's about bringing that quality of mindfulness to everything we do, whether we're sitting on a cushion meditating or walking in nature or having a conversation or even just washing the dishes.
It's about being fully present in each moment without judgment.
Exactly. And as we've been talking about these habits, what strikes me?
What's that?
How practical they are. They're not just these abstract concepts.
Yeah.
They're tools we can actually use to navigate the challenges of everyday life.
And to create a more meaningful experience.
Exactly. These 10 habits, they offer a roadmap for personal transformation. But it's important to remember, it's not a checklist to be completed.
Right.
It's a journey.
Yeah.
It's an ongoing journey of self-discovery.
Yeah.
And each step along the way is worth celebrating.
Beautifully said. And on that note, we'll move on to the final part of our deep dive, where we'll offer some closing thoughts and reflect on how we can integrate these transformative practices into our own lives. Welcome back to our deep dive, everyone. As we explore these Buddhist habits for personal transformation, it's amazing how these practices are still so relevant today.
Yeah, they've been around for centuries. It really speaks to, how timeless these teachings are and how they address those fundamental aspects of the human experience that go beyond, any particular time or place.
Yeah.
And like we've been talking about, the core of all these habits is really about cultivating that inner peace.
And it seems like that inner peace then ripples outward, impacting not just us, but also our relationships and even the world around us.
Exactly. It's like when you're grounded in that sense of inner peace, you're less likely to just react impulsively, or let external stuff dictate your mood.
Right.
You're more likely to respond to those challenges with more clarity and composure and that energy.
Yeah.
It ripples outward. It influences your relationships, the energy you bring to the world.
It reminds me of that quote from the Dalai Lama.
Okay.
Be kind whenever possible. It is always possible.
Oh, that's a good one.
I feel like when we're grounded in that inner peace, kindness just becomes a more natural response.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And cultivating that inner peace, it's not just about personal gain.
Right.
It's about contributing to a more peaceful and compassionate world.
Yeah, and Buddhism, with its emphasis on interconnectedness and compassion, offers a really powerful framework for doing that.
Yeah. It's not about isolating yourself to achieve enlightenment. It's about recognizing that, we're all connected.
Right.
And that our actions have an impact on others. And these 10 habits, they give us the tools to actually live in alignment with those values.
They're not about being perfect either, right?
No, not at all.
It's about those small, conscious choices we make every day
Yeah.
that move us toward greater peace, wisdom, compassion for ourselves and for others.
Exactly. And, as we wrap up this deep dive,
Yeah.
I'm left with this sense of, like, hope and possibilities. Like, these habits offer a path forward,
Yeah.
a way to approach those challenges in life with more grace and resilience.
It's empowering to realize that transformation is always possible, no matter where we are in our lives.
It starts with that first step,
Yeah.
committing to a daily practice and being kind to ourselves along the way.
So much wisdom packed into these 10 habits. It's been amazing exploring them with you.
Yeah, it's been fun.
And before we go, one final question for you to think about. If suffering comes from attachment, what's one small act of letting go that you could practice today to experience a little more peace in your life?
That's a great question. Something to really ponder.
Thanks for joining us, everyone, on this deep dive into Buddhist wisdom for personal transformation. Until next time, may you find peace, clarity, and joy on your journey.